on my mind. Hello and welcome to episode 83 of the award-winning combat sports podcast, The Boxing Show. With me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. As always, I'd like to remind everybody to please like, comment and subscribe. Turn your notifications on for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, I am joined by the usual twosome this week of Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Andy Clarke as we review this past weekend of boxing and look forward to the little bit of boxing that is on this weekend. But how are we doing, guys?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Back at the normal time today?
Yeah, about time. About time to be in the normal time. Do you know what? The most exciting part of the whole weekend wasn't that fight that you did in Barnsley. It wasn't the fight that I did in Ipswich. I pumped into Denzel Bentley.
Oh, did you really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, did you give him what for?
I mean, he did a really good job. Really good job. Fuck off. Exactly what I said to him. Yeah.
Where did you bump into him?
In Ipswich.
Oh yeah, of course. He did the undercard, didn't he? He was on.
Did he? Fuck, I didn't realise he was really trying to.
Oh my god! Did a great job on the undercard there, Denzel. No, he did the Sam. To be fair though,
did he? I think I seen
Sam Gilly, Gideon Onyanani.
I didn't see him for that. I seen them. What's his name was there as well?
The cruiserweight, Alois Jr. Yeah, it was those two and Darren Rees, who did that. Sam Gilly a draw against Gideon Onyanani.
I did say the bands. I said you did a really good job, and I said we should get you on more. Like just get rid of the fucking this.
No, that's fair.
You laugh because you know he definitely said it as well.
Yeah,
no, 100%.
Bring it. I'm not bothered.
Get rid of him.
How are you, Andy? Did you see Denzel Bentley this weekend?
No, I didn't because if he managed, I'd have loved to have seen him. He's a great lad.
Text and say, watch out for that little Welsh midget.
Yeah, I mean, talented individual, but he can't be in two places at once. So unless he came round my house yesterday, then he would have struggled because I was in Barnsley the day before. Barnsley and Ipswich quite a long way apart.
They certainly are, and they were, of course, both host to.
I wouldn't have minded if he had come round my house yesterday, actually, because as soon as I got home, I had to go and pick up my daughter. My wife had gone out. So what she does now quite often is that as soon as I get back from any kind of work trip, she'll just arrange to go out, and then I immediately take over parenting.
Do you know, I'm glad you said that because all the trips I go from Saudi, whenever I go home, the first thing I'm doing.
Looking after the kids.
What? No, not like that. Washing.
Yeah.
The last time I came from Saudi, I do all the washing in my house. I do all in my house. I mean, I did 3 lots of washing. I got home on Saudi on a Sunday one day. I did 3 lots of washing before I went to bed. And some ironing. I mean, the life. Amanda. She don't watch it and see what I like. Yeah, all the shit I said in the past, I would have been sacked. Remember you said something about having a fight with her? I said, I don't give weight to weight. She missed that one. Yeah. Anyway, you lazy go.
Anyway, yes, let's get going. We do have a fair bit to get through from this past weekend. Barry, going to start with you. You were in, I was going to say sunny Ipswich, but it was far from sunny on Saturday night for Fabio Wardley against Justis Huni. Spectacular win for Justis Huni until it wasn't it? It was that kind of night.
First of all, how many tickets he sold? I mean, I looked around the crowd. This is Fabio Wardley. I looked around the crowd and I went, "Oh, white collar boxers than this." It wasn't packed. It was really busy. It was loads of people there, and they were there quite early as well. I go, "White collar boxers." It was unbelievable. It's not a kid who's been built up on the amateurs, the Olympics, or anybody with a massive profile to start with. He just started with boxing in his 20s and had a little go, and he's not technically brilliant, but all of a sudden he's gone from being on undercards to almost selling out the football ground. I mean, it's quite phenomenal. And in that rain as well. A lot of people would go, I might have spent £100 on a ticket, but I'm not standing in that shit. I would.
Oh yeah, you can definitely have an impact in that situation, can't it? Because you know that you can walk up on the day and buy a ticket for that because it's a big ground and you're not going to sell it out. And you think a lot of people who might have done that would probably decide not to, but by the sound of it, they still came, and they did really well. That is impressive. I do think for football fans, this sounds mad, but for football fans, being able to go to their football ground and get a beer and drink it in their seat is something they really want to do, and you can do that in boxing, and you can't do it in football.
Well, actually, a boxing fan can't do that anymore, can he, indoors? So.
Yeah. So I think it's just, you know,
only go to stadium.
They are kind of slight, they are kind of slight collectors. Like, there's a novelty value to it for people, which I think they really, really like.
But a mad fight though. I mean, like, we knew Huni was the better boxer because he had more schooling, but I thought Fabio Wardley would have got to him a lot earlier. But he didn't get to him, so just hit him with one punch. I mean, I think Fabio Wardley was confused and lost through most of that fight. If anyone was getting knocked out, you would have bet your house on him getting stopped. You would have, because he looked tired. I mean, I kept saying in the commentary he looks tired, but then usually that's when he's at his best, and none of that happened. And he just was. Huni was the feet of Huni, but he didn't do anything brilliant either. By the way, he didn't do anything brilliant. He did a few things. He punched at the chest with the jab, or bent his legs every now and again, and then threw over the top, and he didn't know how to answer that. He didn't have a clue how to answer it at all. I mean, he just didn't have a clue what was going on. And also, when Huni was moving his feet in and out, just blew his mind. Because he's used to having guys just walk. Well, most heavyweights just walk, don't they? They don't really bounce around. And he just didn't have a clue. And Huni wasn't hitting him hard, but he was hitting him often. And then he was shots he didn't see. And like, what was happening to him, I thought. And he didn't want to commit to the right hand. He was over. I was saying that. I said at the start of the fight, I said, Huni's got to make sure that when Fabio throws, got to make him miss, make him pay very quickly. And hopefully then he thinks, oh, I can't make a mistake. And then, because he hasn't got the real proper schooling, then he'll start thinking, what am I going to do? I didn't think it would happen. I didn't sort of get it right. It wasn't quite like that, but it sort of was in a way that he took away that right hand very quickly by making him miss and making him pay. And then he was just, he was coasting. I mean, he wasn't coasting. He was concentrating. I mean, but he was schooling Wardley, I thought, really. And Wardley, you always know Wardley's always going to try and give it, but he wouldn't slow down or stop enough for Wardley to have a good dig at him. He just couldn't get the grips with him. That's all. Couldn't double the jab to close the distance. Every time he tried to advance, he just moved his feet. Huni and move away. He was having it all his own way. I mean, he arguably made one mistake, and it cost him the fight. He threw that right hand. He brought that right foot forward, squared himself up, and at that time it was like, no, it's in real time. And at that time, Wardley, and it wasn't. You'd like to think, and he'll tell you this, that it was a thought out thing to take your head off the line. This is a new saying, isn't it? Take your head off, move your head over to the left, off the line, and throw that right hand on the middle. But he just threw it. That's all that happened. It just, the way he throws is he throws with so much conviction. It moves the head because his body goes like this. He didn't sort of like plan to make him miss and make him like slip down the middle. He just went boom, and he threw at the same time because Huni's feet were square. He took the brunt of it, and then what we missed, because we were all jumping up doing somersaults and juggling to the excitement of it all, was the count.
What are your thoughts? We were going to come on to this later, but you've brought it up.
I did the whole fight, haven't I?
No, that's okay.
I want to go see. Yeah,
you were there.
There has been
Callum Simpson.
some discussion about the count, or when the count was picked up, or how long the count was, or was Huni ready?
I think I have a. If you look at the referee, his fingers are like 4, but his mouth's saying 8. I think it looks a little bit like that. I don't think he quite got it, and it looks like he got up at like 8ish. Looks, so I can't quite remember because we were doing other stuff. We were already doing Beyond the Bell at that point. But that they didn't give him a chance to have a good look at him. But the referees can see him, and also I'm not sure it was like in the world boxing, but in British boxing, the timekeeper does the count.
Yeah, always.
Yeah. So sorry to jump in. No, people are talking about.
Got a beard.
But yeah, we've seen some of our American counterparts talking about it. It gets picked up immediately by the timekeeper, and then the referee picks up the count. So they're like, he started on 5.
Yeah, but I think the referee didn't. I think he didn't quite say. So say for argument, say that the timekeeper's on 4, or say he's on 6. Say he's on 6. I think the ref sort of had to readjust himself. I think he sort of went 4 or 6. So I think he went a little bit like that. I haven't played it back, but I think that's what it was.
I had a look at it last night, it's sort of in preparation for today, because I knew it would obviously come up. We know that a 10 count is not a 10-second count. No. It is a 10 count of the referee. It was 11 seconds of normal time. I don't know.
That's good.
Different. Yeah, 11
it could be
seconds.
Anything between like 10 and 14, I find.
11 seconds from when Huni hits the canvas to when it gets waved off. What I don't think helped was the choice of the broadcaster, who decided to focus on...
Was that live or just...
That was live, yeah. So it was when Huni was down, the camera panned to promoters row and started to film the promoters rather than... So when Huni had got up, the fight was basically over. You didn't see him pick himself up. You didn't see the referee.
Did the referee, I have watched it, by the way, but did the referee get to 9 and then wave his arms?
Yeah, he went 9 out.
Yeah, you see, the interesting thing about this for me is that this is, I love this stuff because I'm anal. But like you say, a fighter hits the canvas.
Just leave it.
A fighter hits the canvas and the timekeeper immediately starts counting. And the referee at that point has other jobs to do. The referee has to get the fighter who scored the knockdown to the furthest neutral corner and then take up a position from which they can see both fighters, and then they'll pick up the count. So that's what he would have done.
Pick up the count.
Yeah, then he would have picked up the count from the timekeeper. That's what happens. And you don't have to say 10. 10 is the end. 10 means it's over.
It's always 9 and out.
Because you haven't, it's 9 and out, wave their arms. And if the fighter is in the act of rising, if they're getting back to their feet, that's not up. Rising is not up. As in the same way that you cannot hit a fighter when they're rising, rising is not up. So I don't think there was anything wrong with what the referee did.
But there's always an argument, and a big fight on the top of the bill, like the Fury one, for example, against Wilder, that you allow, or the Fury one against Usyk, more likely. No, you allow a bit more, arguably. I mean, you shouldn't. Every fight should be the same. It's not.
But it happens.
And also, he's seen his eyes, so you don't know that sort of thing. And also, he's raised in Ipswich. No.
That's the other thing.
I don't think that was
I'll play devil's advocate.
Referees will kind of admit that, that you've got to try your hardest to try and kind of block all that stuff out. But they're human beings.
Massive calls over the years. We go right the way back to Meldrick Taylor and Julio Cesar Chavez. You know, does the fact that he's miles ahead in the fight and he lasts another 2 or 3 seconds, does that matter? Does that count?
Fury against Usyk, if that wasn't the heavyweight championship of the world, I think I said on the broadcast.
We said afterwards, as well.
No, that fight gets stopped. Yeah. The ropes kept him up, but he wasn't defending himself. I mean, he gets stopped. I mean, you allow him more time for big things.
Because it's the undisputed heavyweight championship.
It means a bit more.
World,
I mean, other boxers would go, that's not fair to me, but that's just life, isn't it? But I mean, it's and maybe there. I don't know. This is not a huge fight. Maybe you could have gone on a bit more. But you know, I think he's getting stashed anyway. But I mean, that's irrelevant. You've got to give him the opportunity if he's up. But he wasn't up. I think you're right. He wasn't up. It's the timekeeper's count. So not the referee going. So I think the people look at it and go, he's hit the floor, sort of rolled a bit, didn't he? So he's hit the floor. I don't know when you start the count, when he starts touching the floor,
as soon as he hits the
when
floor.
It's clear that he's
okay. No, as soon as you hit the canvas.
So
anything.
But the referee's gone to Wardley, right? You go over there, and to be fair, he was close. They were all close enough for him not to have to walk Wardley to the corner. You go over there, right? Okay. So they're taking it from there. 1, 2, 3. I think they're taking from that, which then he gets up about 7 probably.
Yeah, that's that. But that's not the rules.
Yeah. But you can hear the timekeeper. You can't hear what he's saying, but you can hear him going.
People weigh in on this stuff and they don't know the rules, and it is quite frustrating, I think, because you just think, well, it's actually really sort of simple. And with something like this, I think it's fair for Team Huni to point out things that may have happened in other fights.
I had a message from his manager 10 minutes after the fight.
Yeah, I would never object to someone saying...
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I would never object to someone saying, well, you know, there's no consistency because look how long that count was and this fighter was given more chance and we should have been given the same chance. I get all of that. But if you just treat it in isolation, what the referee did was right.
Yeah.
He picked up the count from the timekeeper, which is absolute basics, and then he got to 10, which is what the wave of the arms is, and he wasn't up. So therefore, he's counted out and he's knocked out.
You've got to get David Adelaide and people going, same happens with me with Wardley. Stopped it too early and all. So you're going to get all these things. Now there's some conspiracy theories towards people protecting Wardley's career. But listen, anyway, whatever. He would have knocked him out anyway after that. I stopped him for sure. I'm pretty sure. But
just to play devil's advocate, and I'll leave this open to whichever one wants to take it on. Does Wardley get stopped like that? If it's Wardley who goes down?
And that's a fair thing to come back with. Like I say, it's like in isolation, what the referee did, there is nothing wrong with it. But you'll have discussion around it based on things like that, and it's a fair point because I don't know is the answer. I don't know. Maybe not, or maybe yes, because referees. It's an individual thing, isn't it? It's an individual thing as to how they react, and they won't all react in the same way.
I mean, in that fight, yes. In the way the fight was going,
that's a good point.
I would argue that he maybe goes, you've been outboxed for every round pretty much, almost, and you're not getting hurt, but you look like every now and again you were getting caught with some shots that were knocking you back a little bit, but you didn't look in any massive jeopardy of getting hurt. Then all of a sudden you get caught with a massive shot and you're hurt after losing everything. You might have gone and you get up on the time, on that sort of time, then you probably go, nah. But then it's also sometimes because you've known that fight, you've watched that fight more, and you've seen him be wobbly on his legs and come back. Go back to Carl Thompson versus David Hay. If that wasn't Carl Thompson, that fight would have got stopped maybe a couple of times when David Hay had him all over the place. Yeah. Because it's Carl Thompson, you know what he's like. That he can come back after being hurt. He does recover quickly. The referee give it a little bit more leeway because he knew him. There's an argument there. Why? That's an unfair bias, isn't it? But but it's a valid point. Actually, maybe it wouldn't have. But I sort of think in that particular fight, the way it was going, it was. If it was against the run of play, though, I would probably say
you'd struggle to say
no.
It probably,
I had no problem with the stoppage, but I don't think Wardley would have been stopped.
No,
and that's just my opinion.
Yeah. What was interesting?
But
for me
I thought it was a legitimate stoppage. I thought Huni was, and there was no complaints from Huni. It's fair to say as well. He was really good.
That
after
does
the
mean
fight.
something.
Fantastic, what a bloke.
He took it for a guy who, I mean, he was 6.5, 7 minutes away from a life-changing win.
But you know what, right?
Yeah. And it got taken away from him, and afterwards, I thought
on
he was
a real
fantastic.
much smaller scale than this, I went to the World Championships and I lost in my first fight against an Australian. So embarrassed. But I boxed so well. I think I got turned over actually. And I very rarely say that, but I boxed so well that when I phoned my dad to tell him I lost, I wasn't even sad. He said, "Oh, you don't sound like you lost." I said, "Oh, but I boxed so well. I was really." And do you know what I mean? Because he was boxing so well, better than he'd ever boxed before, he might have just gone. It almost forgot. He knew he's lost, and he'd be gutted more now probably. But the initial thing, he's like, "Oh, he's just boxing brilliant." You know what I mean? He's boxing so well, almost that sort of thing, rather than "Oh no, it's all crumble for him." Because I think, his future is brighter now than it was before that fight, in my opinion. Even though he's lost, I think his future's brighter because he's shown so much more than I thought he had. To be fair, I mean, but there's always an argument now. Where's Wardley? I mean, there's more question now where Wardley is. I mean, there was always a thing. The problem with boxing nowadays, and the guy who started in my era, is you go from here to here very quickly without the real merit of having to fight the people on the way up to prove that you belong here, because the international belts give you a ranking before you're ready, and then once you get that and you defend it, you jump up higher, and when someone loses a title shot, they go way below you automatically. Now, usually if you box for the world title and you're not a big name, you go from number 1 to number 10 or 11 or 12 straight automatically.
Outside the top 15, probably.
Yeah. So and then you move up without doing much. And the more you defend your international, European, WBO, WBA, IBF, WBC, whatever it is, you just automatically just nick a space every time.
I mean, we saw this weekend, Claudio Square, he was the IBF.
Yeah.
He managed to somehow get himself into the top 15 of the IBF by winning IBF Europeans and IBF Continentals.
He's 2 inches shorter than me.
He went. We're going to get onto this later on. We're only going to spend 2 minutes on it. He was on the. So, does anybody know what he weighed on the second day weigh-in for the IBF rehydration?
145 pounds.
194 pounds. He was.
Shut up.
Wow.
On the second day rehydration.
He's too small for a cruiserweight.
Job Tyre looked like the Jolly Green Giant.
He's a light heavyweight, then, isn't he? Basically,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it. But anyway, back to Fabio Wardley.
But it was. I mean, what a way to win. Arguably, for your profile, and storytelling, which is more boxing.
The
more
best possible thing, almost.
It's the best way to do it.
We spoke about it before.
It's like being promoted in football, isn't it? You're better being promoted through the playoffs than you're actually just winning the league.
Yeah.
We spoke about it before the fight, didn't we? About he'd kind of quoted Deontay Wilder at the press conference before the fight. He said, "You've got to be perfect for 12 rounds. You've got to be perfect for 1 second." And it was literally that. He was perfect for 1 second. It had that Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz about it. But having said that, even like the second Ortiz fight is always the one that I talk about with that. I know Ortiz had more success in the first fight, but he won every round of the second fight and Wilder did nothing. Whereas this one was like that, but it was a lot more fraught than that. He was getting hit a lot cleaner than Wilder was in that second Ortiz fight, and then all of a sudden
it was interesting. It was over because I obviously we watch a lot of fights after the event, but it is interesting watching them after the event where it's a real big one, because I was sat in Barnsley and we'd finished, and I think our main event started only like 20 minutes before yours. And so when we got off air, or we'd finished commentary anyway, I immediately looked at my phone and wanted to see what was happening. And what I was reading was that he was losing every round, and even some people suggesting, the corner needs to start to think about this. And I thought, wow, he must be getting an absolute shellacking. And then you see, and he's won. And me and Macklin were just laughing, like, because he's a great story, Fabio, and he's good to be around, and he's good fun. And what a way to do it. It's absolutely incredible. So hearing all of that, I'm always then very curious to actually watch it and see what happened. At no point did I feel like they should have been thinking about pulling him out, because he's capable of what he's capable of, firstly. But I didn't think it was getting that bad. It was maybe starting to look a little bit sorry for himself at times, but I didn't think it was getting that bad whereby you would start to think about that, because we saw the rough passage he went through against Fraser, and I'd say he looked kind of more on the brink of getting chinned against Fraser than he did by Huni. So I didn't really understand some of that talk that I was seeing, because I think people are a bit premature with that now. We don't want a world where people don't get stopped and we don't get that conclusion to a fight. And I wouldn't imagine that Ben Davison was ever close to pulling him out of the fight, but it was. I think Huni, when he looks back on it, you're always in for a tough few weeks when you lose a big fight. And I think I was talking to someone about George Foreman Michael Moorer last week for something I was doing, and I'm not saying it was like that, but at the same time, he did make a bit of a mistake, didn't he? Like you say, he came forward a bit casually. That right foot came round square, and he walked onto one basically, and I think he'll think to himself,
that
it was a lapse in concentration. I think that, wasn't it? And we're demanding a lot of somebody there, but that's the level he's hoping to be at. And I think he'll look at that and just think, shit, like I was a mile ahead. All I had to do at that point was make sure that didn't happen, and he opened the door for it.
And the funny thing, because Wardley, you never thought you'd think about stopping the fight, but quite often he walked back to that corner.
He looked out of ideas.
Instead, he tiredly looked knackered.
Yeah, he looked knackered.
Because he walks a bit like he's like wobbly on the leg, but I don't think he was hurt. He just looked knackered, and also the whole thing with his shoulders. Yeah, like I don't know what to do.
I think the difference being as well, I think he came closer to being stopped in the first Clarke fight, but he had a lot more success to sort of keep him in there. He had those flashes where he'd land something and he dropped Clarke in the fifth round or wherever it was. Exactly, but also there's that evidence in that fight that he can do it. Whereas other than a right hand right on the bell at the end of the first round, there was nothing from Wardley.
Physically, the Clarke fight was harder, but mentally this one was much worse, because it must have been just demoralising.
Well, and that exposure,
in front of however many people were there, like you're in front of your hometown in a stadium and you lose in pretty much every round.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
The good thing for him though, they all forget that.
100%. It makes the triumph even greater.
They just remember that, but like he might be finding he might get a bit of a chip on his shoulder here, which he hasn't really had. I mean, he's a very affable fella, isn't he? But also looks like he can turn like that, in my opinion. But he's a lovely bloke to be around. He's a lovely guy. And but he's there's going to be a bit of criticism about his ability to go all the way. Now, where there was a bit of a train behind, this is the one to get him a world title shot, and it's an interim title maybe. Who cares about that? But it was all about and while it was very much to go, listen, but he's in the queue. The first one is WBO. If whoever wins this one now, the first one, they've got all the belts. WBO's the first one in line. So, you know, you got to wait his turn, but he's on the right track. So going like, it's all just slow down a bit. Because he hasn't had that schooling where he can adapt on his feet from the amateurs, which is true. I mean, what he's done is tremendous, and you can't call him a white-collar boxer anymore because he's beaten people who have gone to the Olympics and won medals. There you go. But it just shows in fights like this, them shortcomings are massively highlighted. You can't think on your feet because you hadn't had to. It's not your fault. It's not saying you haven't got the intelligence, but unless you've done it, why would you need to? Why would you wouldn't know? But as an amateur, you have to learn how to do that
quickly.
I mean, the heavyweights less than any other because they are banging people off left, front, and centre. But you know, they all have to. And even if it's just to be safe, defensively minded, or whatever it is. But he couldn't do anything, and then you could see that he was lost. He couldn't find the home for that right hand, and he knew enough that if I just throw this like I do normally, this guy's going to move out the way and he's going to hit me. And not that he's afraid to get hit. Wardley, of all the fight, he doesn't care. But like you said, like in the Fraser Clarke fight, he's willing to take one, to give one. But against Huni, he knew that if he takes one, he might not be able to give one either.
So
what's the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's the point, isn't it? You know, like, and then you start clamming up then and tensing up and all that. Like we spoke this all the time. That tires you out mentally. You're overthinking stuff. It all just freaks you out, and it has a physical effect on you. And I think we saw that more than anything. And he just, if you just keep still for 2 minutes, I'll wreck you. And which I think he could have, by the way. Because I don't think his chin's the greatest. Yeah, I don't think. No.
I mean, much was made about that beforehand. Obviously, he had the fight with Kevin Lorena, which raised some eyebrows. I mean, Kevin Lorena's a good fighter who can punch a bit. Ask Daniel Dubois.
But not the biggest guy, heavyweight, is he?
Then he had a couple of other. He had another pro fight. I can't remember who it was against. It was one of the ones he had in Australia where he got wobbled a little bit, and then there was the sparring footage that was kind of circulating a week or two before the fight where he gets dropped.
That was me, wasn't it?
Gets knocked out by Barry Jones' left hook in the gym.
Yeah.
But on the flip side to that, Barry, how much confidence and how much, because we said this again going into the fight, you know, Wardley, for all of his shortcomings and kind of lack of experience, he's got a great chin, he can punch, and he's game and he's brave, and in the heavyweight division that can take you a long way.
I don't think he has a great chin. I don't think he hasn't a bad chin. I don't think his chin's phenomenal, by the way. He's just one of those guys who just throws under pressure. He doesn't, his first thought is not he doesn't panic when he gets hurt. He doesn't look to do the right thing and be safety first when he gets hit. So he doesn't show signs of he just like wants to hit you back. Like a Nigel Benn would. I think he didn't have the greatest of chins either, by the way. They can take a shot. I'm not saying he can't take a shot, but I don't think he has like a massive chin that he can just walk through walls with it. But it looks that way because he just keeps throwing. I mean, quite often when he's throwing in those fights where he's had wars, he's half out on his feet. He just don't know what he just keeps going. I'll just keep throwing until I recover my senses. So that's what I say about instinctiveness. About Nigel Benn was the same. I was related to him because they'd be all over the place. Their balance would be terrible, but that ferocity they had and power would take away your momentum. You hit them with a good shot, and then you're the one backing up. So what's that all about? I mean, that was my career, by the way. But I mean, that freaks people out. That do they? And very few fighters have that ability. He's not like Marvin Hagler chin, but he wouldn't affect him at all. I think it does affect him. But finding a way to win is a skill that you can teach. And you know, when you have, like you said, but the synopsis of his fight was he said it before it happened, and he pretty much this is what's going to happen. You got to be perfect for every second of every round. All I need is one. And when I get that opportunity, you're gonna knock him out. So you'll take from that, and like boxers do, you lie to yourself, so you forget about all the other crap, and just focus on look what I did. I entertained everyone, and then I knocked him out, right at the very end. It's a great story again. This he rolls on, but as a matchmaker and as a trainer and as a coach and all manager, all that stuff, I'd be thinking you can't go back anymore, unfortunately, but you can't go forward either with him.
He's in that
slipstream.
Yeah, he's in that WBA slipstream now, where you've got Pulev's the regular champion. Well, you have to go through it, unfortunately. And Usyk is so there's still a log jam before he has to really progress. I don't think there's any need for him to.
Yes,
but settling in around that sort of fringe world level.
They have to be careful who they put him in with.
Yeah, I mean they had to be careful beforehand.
There are people who will suit him better.
Yeah,
than
exactly. So I think they had to be careful. Like, Huni was of
all the weights,
Huni was a risky fight.
Yeah, but I think everyone got carried away with what he could do. I mean, ultimately, he beat Fraser Clarke, who's a very good boxer. And it also is an Olympian, so he's obviously well skilled, but it's still British level.
Yeah,
David Adley is still British level. Like they might go on to be world champions, who knows? And I hope they all do. But
at that time,
and still at this time, that's where they're at. So it wasn't even European level. I mean, I'm sure they are, but he hadn't been there yet. So it's a big step up. But then again, Huni is the same. What can you say about him? That was his biggest fight.
Yeah,
this test. So Lorena's more experienced.
That's one of the fascinating things about boxing, isn't it? We don't
Certainly
have the metrics of other sports, particularly in heavyweight. We don't have the metrics. You kind of make your own fixtures, and then try and decide yourselves based on what your fighter has done, where they are, and that's how you position them, and that's how you promote them, and that's how you try and sell them. It's mad, really. But just back to what you were saying about the chin, I think you're totally right, and that's what makes him really attractive, is that there is vulnerability there, like there was with Ben. He looks like he could be knocked out, but the point is, if you're going to beat him, you're going to have to, because he will keep coming. You're going to have to nail him down, and that's what makes him so good to watch. That's what makes him so good to watch.
Another factor with him as well. Look what he just sold.
Yeah.
So. Like it's all
they'll all be coming back.
I mean, how many were in, do you reckon? Because that's a big ground. It's got to be 30,000 Portman Road, and then the pitch.
I reckon there was 20. I mean,
that's impressive.
I know. So the back, there's one stand beyond that wasn't used, but the two long ones were used, and they were quite full. And the other one on the other side wasn't full, but there was a lot of people there, and the floor seats were soaking. Bless them. All the ones who paid the most money had the worst seat. I mean, I gotta say, TalkSport were behind us. I was laughing because TalkSport were behind us. We were under the cover of the ring, but they're behind us, and they all got their ponchos on. Like,
did you do Frampton Jackson in Belfast?
Yeah, I did that one. Yeah. I was in the same position. I mean, I'm safe. I am.
I wasn't safe. I was in the first row of the media. I was absolutely
same with Chisora and Hey.
It doesn't cover many people, the canopy, does it? You feel like it might be. It doesn't. I've been caught on the perimeter.
I didn't get caught with that. But
I kept the poncho, right? I thought I had a poncho. I thought I'll keep this because they might run out, and then somebody won't have one.
You can sell
but I'll have it. No, I'm not going to sell it. But I got it. You haven't. So, it might be someone I don't like, which is a massive risk.
Or just turn around and stand up and just tear it.
The poncho off. Okay, so who next for Fabio Wardley? Andy, going to come to you first. Shall I throw some names?
Yeah, please.
So there are the likes of Filip Hrgović, Derek Chisora, Joe Joyce, Otto Wallin.
I mean, he kind of put his hand up for Chisora yesterday, Fabio, didn't he? I saw that on Twitter, and I get it. And I think Hrgović on Saturday night, if it had been Hrgović, not Huni, and I know that's a stupid thing to say because they don't fight exactly the same, but he does punch a lot harder than Huni.
But you can hit him back.
But you can, yeah.
It's mad, isn't it? All of a sudden
I mean, I would really like to see it.
Great fight. Yeah.
I would really like to see it. But if I was Team Wardley, maybe not yet. But then again, you couldn't write Chisora off. But how much would he necessarily learn? I'd probably say Chisora, actually. Because he's definitely going to fight again, Derek, isn't he?
Yeah,
and they can go back to Paul Monroe with it.
Some other names, Jarrell Miller, of course, sort of still somehow. I never
really put those together before. Even get a license.
Jared Anderson.
I mean, his next one will be. I mean, it'll either be at like the O2 or someone like that, or maybe it'll be a Saudi fight. But they can't go back to Ipswich for another year, can they?
So it'll be something. It'll be making a defence. I'd imagine he'll want a little bit of a rest after the weekend.
I love the Hrgović fight. No, you talk about it.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Again, I mean, you want to tread water with him, though.
Yeah, for a couple of fights. Yeah, because he's still. We've spoken about it really. It's kind of gone away a little bit from the conversation because he had those 12 rounds against Fraser Clarke in the first fight, but. it's obviously we talk about the white collar stuff quite a lot because it's part of the story and it's quite an easy part of the story, but what's underneath that is what we used to talk about probably half a dozen fights ago with him, where he hadn't had those grounding fights, he hadn't had those 10 rounds or even 8 rounds with guys. When you think about, he boxed Michael Coffey at the O2, I think it was on the Joshua Franklin undercard, and that was a fight where it looked as though he was going to have to work a few things out, and Coffey was tricky and he was southpaw, and then all of a sudden, boom, the fight was over, like 3-4 rounds or whatever it was, and he kind of went from that and stepped up quite quickly. So I mean, it's not him anymore, but like a Marius Vac type character is kind of who you'd want to see him. Even Otto Wallin, like durable guy,
southpaw.
Well, durable on occasion.
Yeah, exactly. I know all of a sudden that's sort of diminished, isn't it?
I think it is that bracket, isn't it? It is that.
And they're solid fighters who will all fancy their chances as
The
well.
good thing about that weight is, like, Tread Ward's another way. She'll go, what's the point in that? But like with heavyweights, because he'll just smash him to pieces. That's why. I mean, every fight he has is exciting, isn't it? Because of the way he fights. His rawness is his attraction in many ways, and his vulnerability within that. And also his ability just to not care and still get to you. So that's the way he fights. He will never change. I mean, and also they got to be careful not to change it. Again, I go back to like Joshua and actually Ben Davis, a perfect example, trying to make him a better fighter. Well, actually, it was before that, trying to make him a better fighter and do more stuff. But you can't take away. It was before Ben, so I apologise. But trying to take away, if you lose what you're good at, to add more to your game. But what's the point?
Never to sacrifice.
No. Skillful, really good coaches.
Don't subtract
able
from
to.
Who you are. You just add.
You can't weaken strengths trying to strengthen weaknesses.
I spoke to Ben Davis
with him. What I think, to make him a better fighter, like, you have to make him think more. And if he thinks
but
more,
not too much.
If he thinks, how do you get that balance? Like, I say this all the time. Once you open that brain, you can't take it back. It's open. It's done. Once you give him knowledge, you can't take the knowledge back. You can't say, "Oh, forget about that." No, I mean, some fighters can do that, but they've learned all the skills from day one, and they've been able to process that and decide what they use, what they don't use. And like Ray Leonard, people are great fighters who then switch their brain off at the right time, at the right place. But you can't give someone late in their career. When I say brain, I'm not saying he's thick. I'm not saying he's not intelligent, he clearly is, but I mean, you can't give him a boxing brain and then ask him just to switch it off, because they won't know how to do that. I couldn't do it. There you go, I had a boxing brain, I lacked other stuff, but I couldn't switch my brain off, and that's what made me a negative fighter, but effective at what I did.
He's such an interesting...
Carl Zaghi, who could think, people like him, other fighters, great, Andre Ward, they knew it. Andre Ward actually more like me than anyone else, but when they needed to, they just switched it off and went for it. And that's what makes you from a good fighter to a great fighter. But Wardley just goes for it anyway. That's his superpower in many ways. But he needs more stuff to make him better at the higher level. But if you give him that, you take away that. I mean, and I think you sort of do. So how would you balance that? Good luck, Ben.
I had an interesting chat with Ben before the fight, and I spoke to him yesterday, and he gave me permission to sort of share a few bits from what we spoke about before, because I think we all thought that this was a potentially tricky fight, and he basically said, I won't use the exact words, but he expected it to be a pretty hard night in a sense of Wardley being behind. And this is the stuff that he said to me before the fight. Sort of reword some of it. He basically said that he expected Huni to have a lot of success and for moments of the fight to look really not great for Wardley. But what they'd drilled and what they'd planned to do was to try and basically that Huni fires back every time, to try and draw that from him and then take it on. We already spoke about beforehand how Wardley is, that devil may care approach to boxing, will always take things on, he will always go for it. And that was basically the plan. I don't think anyone expected him to be 9 rounds down after 9 rounds or 8 rounds down after 8 rounds, but basically that was the plan. So they were well aware that they weren't going to outbox Huni, they weren't going to win rounds against Huni. I don't think they expected it to be as fraught as it was. But yeah, they did anticipate a pretty hard night for Wardley, given the characteristics of Huni and how they match up against Wardley by being that. So he's a more rare heavyweight nowadays, isn't he, Huni? Where you've got people like him, Ajit Kabayel's another one. Parker, you could maybe put in that bracket, although he's a little bit bigger. He's always surprisingly big when you see Joseph Parker.
Still good feet though.
But yeah, it's that well.
Basic good feet.
Yeah,
not
but
like,
in the heavyweight division, that goes a long way, doesn't it? Because we've had years of kind of the lumbering jab and grab, and the big guys have kind of ruled the roost for so long that when you get the smaller, more nimble, technically proficient guys, they're a big problem for people.
One thing I did think though was that it was a 12-round fight, wasn't it? Well, you could make the argument that he's got there well within the tape.
Yeah.
And that, the likelihood was going to be that he would have to come from behind. And actually, it's not like he did it in the last 10 seconds of the fight.
No.
He's done it with plenty to spare.
By Ben Davison trained fighters. I mean, Lee Wood.
They were never going to... Yeah, they don't go out there...
schedule.
With someone like Fabio and most heavyweights, they don't go out there looking to win on points. That doesn't mean that they're going to want to be 8 rounds down after 8 rounds, but it wasn't last second. He got it done in plenty of time.
But it was still panic stations, wasn't it? Because, like you mentioned, I think it was you mentioned, one of you mentioned, I think it was more you, probably not you. In the Fraser Clarke fight, he was having success.
That was me.
Yeah.
Was it you on it? Obviously. But and in this fight, he was having no success. So all that and all the stuff we praise him about, where he's better when he's hurt, he's better when he's tired. He has that instinctive reaction that most fighters don't have. He didn't have it on Saturday because he wasn't having any success. He wasn't even hitting gloves or arms or nothing. He couldn't just whack anything. And so he wasn't throwing with conviction at all. And there was a problem. So every fighter that watches him now is going to go, like Parker would fancy it anyway, of course, and he'd be a massive favourite, and he would have always, I think. But he's thinking, well, I do in and out feet. Every heavyweight, like if a heavyweight watches the gym, you go teach him the basics. Don't teach him other stuff. Just teach him the basics. Because the power is such a big factor in that division. If you can do the basics well, arguably in any weight class, really, you should always. But then more than any other, a 1-2 left hook and a high guard get you almost all the way. Arguably, can get you all the way. With Vladimir Klitschko, I mean, it can get you all the way. Just do it now. Don't overcomplicate it, because the power thing is so evident. And in and out feet. You don't need Moses Atama feet, by the way. You don't need his movement, or if you've got it, it's brilliant. But like, all Huni did was just go in and out with his feet. And also changing the levels that he did. I say levels. I should say height now. I say levels now. Changing the height that he did constantly, jabbing to the chest with the right hand over the top, and just mixing that up. I think that blew Wardley's mind a little bit. He's like, oh, where is he?
I mean, we talk about or it's been kind of, we've referenced it here about him being like the British Deontay Wilder. I remember being in LA with you for Wilder Fury 1. Remember when Fury hit Wilder with a double feint in the first round, and Wilder almost jumped out the ring. What the fuck was that? Like, his arms went here and there, and also he had no idea what was in front of him.
Fight that double
in the first round he went, and he whoa. It's similar to that.
I've got to say about that double feint. To do that double feint, right? I praised on the commentary on the night in that second fight, that double feint. To do that at my weight, so difficult, so tiring. To do that when you're like 20 stone, 19 stone, or whatever. Oh.
Takes a special kind of athlete, mate.
What's fascinating with
honestly, God, it's so difficult to do, so tiring, but to do it with and to get it right as well. I mean, Fury was special in that fight, I thought.
But what's fascinating with Wardley was what Barry was just talking about a few minutes ago, which is the kind of the coaching aspect of it. And you don't want to dilute those instincts, but obviously you do want to always try and make someone better. And that's what always fascinates me about coaching. How do you make that evaluation of how good it is that you think they can be, or what the best form of them is, and just stick with that rather than meddle in a way which you suspect might be counterproductive? And that's kind of where they are with him, I think. You're always going to want to make somebody better, but sometimes you can ruin a project by trying something that you probably deep down suspect isn't the greatest idea. Because if you get someone like him overthinking, it could be the ruin of him. And that will probably come, that flashpoint, in any case, the first time he loses. Because for an instinctive fighter, if they get knocked out, for example, then they will question everything. and some of them become gun shy and they're never the same again. Others are fine, but he's going to have to answer that at some point anyway. But I just wonder what Ben Davison's going to do, because, as I say, as a coach, the temptation is always to think, well, I need to improve that, and I need to improve that, and then I need to improve that. But I do think you always need to be aware that, yes, but at the same time, not everybody can be built into the perfect fighter, because, like Barry said, some people have those instincts and switch them on when they need them, and it's an instinct for that even to happen, and then at other times can think. But they can do that because they're really, really, really good, and not everybody can be that.
And it's sort of like you ingrain the technique so much, it becomes a different sort of instinct anyway. So it's like it naturally
happens.
You guess that's exactly. Like, I was going to say, you can dull the instinct of people. Like anything. Ask my missus.
I think they're again. I think Ben Davison's sort of understanding of what he's got. Again, a couple of bits that he'd said to me beforehand. He'd said, if he overthinks it and tries to be too clever, he'll get slaughtered in spells. He's got a decent IQ, Fabio, but he needs to set traps and disguise them and put them together. So it's all that sort of stuff where he's not trying.
I do think there's a kind of interesting comparison to be made with Joshua. Maybe they're not exactly the same, but it's just, you could argue that Rob McCracken, who had him from the beginning, looked at Joshua and knew exactly what he was and exactly what he was capable of, and that's what he did. And then, of course, against Ruiz, the inevitable, and that's not because I say that purely because getting knocked out at heavyweight is really inevitable at some point or something like that. That happened, and he then questioned everything, and he's overthunk everything since, hasn't he?
Yeah. They got it right for the second fight. That's the funny thing about that. It's
for that night they did.
Yeah, they did. But again, that's the whole point about they opened his brain. Just the stuff when you land with a good shot, just or if he hits you, if you don't land, don't be careful what's coming back. Be aware what's coming back. Well, all these things are right. They're all. So you're teaching people the right stuff, but you might get the wrong result. Ultimately, because then once he didn't think that when Josh used to get hit, he was never this gung-ho lunatic, but still, that when you're a big lump, I've seen big lumps fight in the street and pubs and stuff. They throw like crazy because they know they got the power to knock you out, and they know that guy got the power to knock you out as well. So you just throw, hoping you get there first, so you throw with fear. It's the fear that if you don't throw, he's definitely gonna knock you out. So I don't do that because I haven't got the power. So if I just throw with you, I know if you hit me, I'm better doing being smart than I am, like picking up a chair or whatever it is, like running. Or you know what I mean. You have to know, you do what's good for you. But with big guys, they know they got it, so they just go straight away. Hit you before you hit me, or if you catch me, I don't stop throwing until I knock you out. And Joshua sort of had that. I think in the White fight was a perfect example of that. He got caught with a good shot. But you just went, I got it as well, by the way, and I'll show you. But still within a good structure. But in Ruiz too, and it wasn't so much he got knocked out, it's how tired he got very quickly with the panic. And it was all, listen, just be more sensible, be relaxed a little bit more, move your feet and box, and you can box. And he thought, this is perfect. But then you can't take that back then and go, no, forget about that now. For this fight, you've got to do what you used to do. And you go, well, I will. Or I missed. Right. Or you come up with a shot, right, I'll regroup. You go, no, don't regroup. That was for that fight. No, to go back to what we hit you, just keep stealing the space, keep bullying him with the straight shots. And you go, I'm not doing that because I don't know. I have to regroup and dance around. And then it took away what he was good at. And you can't blame no one for that because he did the right thing for that fight.
Yeah.
But Wardley won't do that. I don't think you can get him there. I don't think Ben wants to get him there.
But that's good though, isn't it? Because it's sometimes like, you do things a certain way and it works and it works and it works, and then it doesn't. And it's a great thing if you've got a fighter who then doesn't question it. They just say, well, it just didn't work that night. But it's always worked before and it will work again. I don't need to change anything. This is boxing. As opposed to someone who thinks that thing I've always done didn't work, therefore I need to do something completely new. That can
and also
be difficult.
the Wardley train has no destination. I don't know why I have to say that.
It's very profound of
you. See, when Andy talks, I always think of other stuff like. Do you know what I mean? So where is his end? I mean, you never saw him fighting for a world title. Then you start to think, maybe you will all of a sudden now. So I think at some point, his lack of experience overall was always going to come back to bite him in the backside. No one's fault. It's just how life is. Like only being a puncher or having a good chin or lack of power, or at some point that's going to come up and bite you in the backside. It's not your fault. It's just, it is what you are. What you are. So him getting I like mixing with people like Usyk and Fury and all that was never going to be. It was never a thing, and because you can't. Just can't. I mean, he's
only one fight away, though. Really, if you think about it, whether or not he wins, but he is in that.
Because you might get him in there, but I think he would find it like a lamb, and he would be just hard. Like
regardless of who wins the Usyk to Bar fight, he would be an underdog against. But
it would be a great story, and you'd be happy for him, and he's in a fortune, and that's all you want, as long as you're safe. But I mean, where does he go? Who knows? But I mean, and maybe you just go. This is what you are. We'll package you the best. So there's an argument there should be a rematch, by the way, even though we haven't even mentioned that. And I'd be pushing for that.
If Fabio Wardley and Queensbury are not going to go a million miles near that,
of course they're not. But
Australian fella.
If it goes to Saudi and in Saudi they say, yeah, we'll have that fight again over here. Because they might be a fan of Huni, by the way, as well as Wardley. They'll certainly be a fan of Wardley, won't they? But they might be a fan of his, and they go, no, that is just a rematch. You know what? They're like over there. They'll go, we want this because boxing fans want this. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. So they get the rematch, and then. But I think Wardley can do better early. I think he should have really he was trying to be a little bit more like stalking, and I think with him you can just double jab more, and bump, Bill Huni was to go up and down with the jab. And that'll get your foot. I say it all the time. It's true. But as you go like that, it gets you can move the foot with the first jab. So when you throw the second one, you're close enough then to actually maybe hit him and throw that right hand. I mean, you put pressure on Huni early. I mean, if you had made Huni's going to box you, but I thought Ben must have thought, but we can make him work for it. Then come late in the fight when Fabio's knackered. So Justis is going to be tired as well, even though he's miles ahead. He'd be tired, but he wasn't. He was flowing, and that was the difference. I think that's when he must have been panicking a bit in the corner, because like if it would have been the fight they thought, he was totally outboxing me, but he's having to work half in. I'm catching him now and again, like you mentioned. He's having a bit of success, so you're still mentally half in the fight. You're getting outboxed. You've seen, I've caught him, or he's tired in a bit here and there. So you're making him work for it, but he wasn't making him work for it. He was dictating the pace. And he was having it all his own way. And if you were in his corner, you'd be like, oh, you just like you grabbed defeat from the jaws of victory. Yeah.
It was some night. Right, gonna fly through the undercard. Win for Pierce O'Leary, who picked up the European Super Lightweight title with a decision win over the toughest man in the world, Liam Dillon, who made a good fight of that, by the way. Liam Dillon, he didn't just survive.
I said in commentary, I said, boys, we're not getting enough credit here.
Yeah, I mean,
and then we gave him.
He took plenty of shots from a fully fledged 140-pounder. I know we all expected Pierce O'Leary to win that fight inside the distance. Great performance from Liam Dillon, but let's not forget a great win. Certainly a big European title victory for Pierce O'Leary. Yeah. Elsewhere on the undercard, Mike Perez stopped the game Stephen Ward in 9 rounds. Second round stoppage win for Nelson Hisa, the Albanian hulking heavyweight who looks like he wants to fight Moses Atalma next. Good luck with that one.
That's the fight there. No one else wants to box.
Yeah, no, fair
play. He wants it. He said after the fight, he's like, I'm unbeaten. He's like, there's people saying he's unbeaten.
Dillian White's the rumour though, isn't it? Atalma.
Yeah, in Saudi, August the 16th.
I mean, it's in many ways perfect for Atalma because it's the perfect name. It's a big name. It's a big heavyweight, but that fight doesn't go past a round or two tops.
I said on another podcast, right? I said on another podcast. I don't mention it.
It's not the developmental fight, I don't think, but perfect from a profile perspective.
No, it's perfect. It was in the UK because it's him or Chisora. I said because it sells out on the back of their name more than his name.
Yeah.
And hopefully he nicks their fans.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And that's what it is.
Going in Saudi, that doesn't. I mean, that's just a fight.
O2 all over it.
But do I think he learns more from fighting Jermaine Franklin? Yes.
Yeah, of course he does. Yeah.
But
they want to. But
that's not going to sell out the O2.
Try and make him a star. They're trying to build him, aren't they?
And it's a good name to tick off your box.
Absolutely, you can see all the reasons why it's in many ways the perfect, but in many other ways I don't necessarily think so. Sam Gilly, an 8-round draw against Gideon Onyanani. We keep mentioning his name often enough that I I will eventually say it properly. But yes, a good
Gilly.
card.
And Gilly's correct, Gilly.
And a successful professional debut for Lewis Richardson, Olympic bronze medalist, with a 6-round decision win over Dimitri Protkunas. Good performance, very sharp start to life in the paid ranks for Lewis Richardson. But we must move on and go over to Barnsley. Andy, we're going to come to you for another new European champion, although didn't have everything his own way. I think it's fair to say Callum Simpson stopping the game. Ivan Zucco, still almost keep calling him Danny Zucco every time, in Barnsley to pick up the European super middleweight title. Some fight.
Oh, mad.
It was. It was a really good few days, actually, because Simpson has built this fan base in Barnsley, and it is 100% real. You come out of the train station on Thursday, and there's this kind of quite old school cinema right opposite it, and there's a message for Callum Simpson on the bit where they put the title to the film, best luck Callum Simpson, one of our own, kind of thing.
Like your dinner's ready.
And yeah, exactly. And when you're driving around town, like through residential areas, going up to our hotel, you literally, people have Callum Simpson flags in their windows. People think you're making this stuff up, but really he is the absolute king in that town. And he hung around after every event to take selfies and sign autographs and say hello to people. And you look at that and you think, should you really be doing that fight week? But it's what he's always done. And maybe that would have to be scaled down a bit if he rises higher, because more people will want to do it and all the rest of it. But it's really something that he's got going there. It really is. And the fight was just... We were lucky with the weather. It was cold, but it was dry basically all day. The forecast just kept changing all week, and it sold well, and people were bang up for it. He's a TV fighter. Like, I've not seen that happen to him before, but the way that he sets about his opponents, you felt like something like that was probably going to happen to him at some point. Not 8 seconds in, but it didn't really make any difference to him, to be honest. He just got up and got on with it again. Put him down again at the end of the 3rd round. Bit heavier that time, but again, it didn't really make too much difference to him. And Zucco was exactly what we thought he was, which was compact, good, physically strong, decent fighter. It was a real, just kind of good old-fashioned European title fight. But in the end, he just overwhelmed him. He's got a chin, he's got an engine, and he's got some minerals. And as discussed, you can go a long way on them. As for what he's got technique-wise to maybe taking a bit above that, he does need to be able to keep it a bit longer at times, because when he did do that in pockets of rounds, and he didn't ever keep it on the outside, but just a bit longer, there wasn't much that Zucco could do about it. But in the end, he got to him. And I wasn't massively enamoured with the Italian corner, the way it finished, because he got knocked down for the second time, and he's staring out of the ring, he was in the ropes almost at his corner, and I couldn't see his face, but it looked to me like one of those ones where he's looking at his corner and he's kind of like, whenever you're ready, whenever you're ready. Yeah. And they let him get up and go out for a 3rd time, and he got knocked down again. And even after the third one,
heavy uppercuts.
Even after the third one, it took a long time before they finally, the penny seemed to drop, and they eventually pulled him out. I thought they took too long over that. But he was, they really thought they had a lot of belief in him going into the week. You could see they brought a big team, and I know people always go on about that, but it does mean something sometimes. There was a lot of them, all track-suited up, and El Jefe, old Salvatore Kirky was over as well, and he doesn't, the main man doesn't always come, does he, promotionally? But it was a good night. It was a wild old night, but in a way, it was exactly what you want. Totally different from Fabio.
That's good.
But for both of them, it absolutely worked. It absolutely worked. He had this incredible, dramatic turnaround, Fabio, and Simpson had this mad start to the fight. Had to pick himself off of the deck twice to come back and win.
But he was winning.
And he did it.
He was winning the fight. He
won everything outside of the knockdowns.
Yeah.
I did. So, it's just discipline. That's all that is. And also, maybe fighting for the crowd, maybe just believing your own hype a little bit. I'm not saying arrogant, just just thinking he has power clearly, and he goes, I'll just blast through everybody. But what I did like about him, they weren't heavy knockdowns really. So, but I mean, he didn't phase him at all. He went about his business in the wrong way quite often, to be fair. But he stuck to his. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. And so not the wrong because it worked. But I mean, he can box. Like his technique is good, and you got to be a bit more disciplined if he wants to go beyond this level, because if that happens at a higher level, he might not get up.
Yeah,
that's the worry. With bigger punch, especially that in them sort of weights, the bigger punches and all that, cleverer, or they can go through the gears and quicken the all that crap. But I mean, it'll be a worry for me for him. But I almost think it's a little bit of a blessing, because I think everyone will want to keep him at this level a bit longer. There's a rush now to get you out of your level to the next one, next test. You can still have a test at this level, because the European level is fantastic, as you said. That was an old-fashioned European title fight, but there's almost like 3, 4, maybe 5 grades of European levels. You can box different levels of European. Get some French guy here, some Italian guy's not as good as a French guy, or whatever it is, vice versa. I don't upset anyone, but and I mean, so there are better European fighters, and there's worse. It's a shame Mark Jeffers never won, because that would have been a really good first defence, which probably was what was going to be set up. But he sells tickets, and he's good. He's good to look. He's good to watch, and he's exciting, and his belief in himself is fantastic. But he can be smarter, and he knows he can be smarter. I think. Yeah, I think I think it's in him. And also, my one thing with him is a little bit. He throws too many punches when he hits you with a good shot, and because he has a bit of power, that's taking it away. So rather than throw those 8 punches, you throw 5 with a bit more weight. Not every punch got to be a knockout punch, because it's good to mix it up a little bit. But sometimes he hits you with a shot and goes brrr, and there's nothing really on him. And he's flustered in some fighters to the floor. Others won't fall over for that way. They'll throw when you're doing that, and because you do hold your feet and try and close the gap quick, and you want to be a bully. You can be a bully behind the punches, but because he does punch, I think his styles is quite nice and neat, and I think he punches beside the body frame, so his technique's quite good. But he can punch longer, as you were saying. You can be a bit longer, punch longer, and then advance. You haven't got to go straight. You haven't put your shoulder on his shoulder straight away. Then be involved like that. Though, to be fair, the uppercuts were pretty good. They were fantastic.
But he wants to take himself into the danger zone to punch, doesn't he?
Is he going to impress? Is going to get him into trouble.
Yeah.
But also, it's what makes him exciting.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
If he listens to me, he's not selling no fucking tickets, is he? Do you know what I mean? He's winning everything easy, but no one's going to watch him.
It's part of his attraction, isn't
it?
People love to see him come, because he comes, he brings it.
But he can be better without changing him. Just slowing his mind down a bit, not calming his mind down a bit, and going, forget about those people. They're all here. They come to watch these people. They're going to, because you said he's like everyone loves him. They're going to come and watch you in a 12-round ball, because it's who you are. They're on the bandwagon now. They're all with you. So I mean, so that's you can be smarter, and you're still going to pack out places, and everyone's going to love you, and you're still going to do what you do at the end of the day, because once you hit something, you're going to go for it. But don't sort of just chuck yourself in the fire straight away. There's no need to do it.
That's a really nice phrase, actually. The idea that you can kind of like fluster someone to the floor, because he has done that.
And he lands punches early.
And they are registering, but it's just this blizzard, and the person in front of you just kind of panics a bit, and all of a sudden they're on a knee or whatever. I'm not saying Zucco did that, because he's a more experienced guy, but he's and that's the exciting thing about him. You look at him and you do feel like there are some rough corners there still to be smoothed off that wouldn't require him to really change.
No, he's
just sort of improve and keep doing his thing. It's great when you. What's interesting with someone like Simpson, and it's the same with Bilham Smith, and the same with Josh Warrington, and the same with Ricky Hatton, and these real big ticket sellers we've had in recent times. None of them, although some of them, like Frampton Chris did well in the amateurs. They it's not like they didn't have decent amateur careers, but none of them went through that Olympic route, and then a big name signing and all the rest of it earmarked as a pay-per-view star. Because I was chatting to a few people last week, and they were talking about pay-per-view, and the dream is always to sign someone as a future pay-per-view star, and you think, but you can't do that. How many times? Joshua would be the one in recent years where people would think he's going to be a pay-per-view star, but loads had to happen before that happened. And he's the only one I can really think of. You can't pick them out with any accuracy. And these other people just appear from nowhere. And that's why you've always got to have your network wide and be watching the small halls, because you don't know where they're going to come from. Because none of those guys... Yeah, Heaney. At Warrington, nothing was expected of him when he turned pro. It was maybe an English title. And he was a pay-per-view fighter.
And then they got him to a world title shot, and they made a massive mistake of boxing someone who should have played with him. Selby, got that wrong, didn't I? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think everyone got more than one wrong. I think with Josh Warrington at some point in his career.
Do you know what I mean? Though,
Carl Frampton would beat him, even after the Selby fight.
That's one of the great things about boxing, is that it's an individual sport, and because you do you do arrange your own fixtures. You get this mad journey that somebody can go on, and then out of absolutely nowhere, this person that nobody gave a shit about 2 or 3 years ago, all of a sudden, it is selling out a football ground. And Fabio Wardley's the same. It's absolutely priceless when you find them.
So, who next for Callum Simpson? We spoke again on the previous show, and we've done it a few times over the last few weeks, because we had the Caleb Plant fight as well, which is obviously also £168. Where next for him? Are we in a similar position as we were with Fabio Wardley, where it's like bedding around that European level? There's 100%. That £168 division, take out the Canelo Crawford logjam, has got a fair share of capable fighters in that top 15. A lot of them are very, very dangerous fights. Where next for him?
See, it's a difficult one, because in this modern, any generation, but this one especially now, it'll be to try and get him number 1, 2, 3, 4 in any organisation. I don't know where he is now. He might already be there, but I mean, let's get him there ready. That's not a bad thing. Get him placed ready, but he's not ready. That's the truth, I would say. And so, staying on European level, because he sells tickets. See, I think you can keep him, you can keep him at that sort of level, building like they did with Ricky Hatton, by the way. They didn't chuck Ricky Hatton in with World Championship straight away. Saying that he boxed some good fighters,
but they really used that WBU, didn't they?
Perfect, and you can't do that now. But they used the European title for what it is.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Because you're not selling fights on the back of, like, if I'm fighting, I got to be boxing somebody good who to help sell tickets. Like, they're all going to watch him. Yeah. And I don't know if there's an indoor place in Barnsley, or there must be some. But
it's the Metrodome.
Yeah, but, they can go.
Sheffield.
But they can go there. They haven't all got outside everything. You know what I mean? They can go somewhere which, if it might be a few less or whatever, but that's not a bad thing, because then more people want to come. I mean, it's supply and demand, isn't it? Up the price of the tickets. And then, but I mean, it's like, just to keep him over there, and he's gaining experience and starting to use his boxing brain more, not just his brute strength, and getting used to not playing to the crowd, all those sort of things. Because he's gone from here to here very quickly. I mean, his popularity, and certainly I'm not saying fame, but his fame maybe, all of a sudden he's gone from a kid not many people are talking about to everyone's mentioning him all the time, topping bills on Sky. It's a huge deal for him. So I'd say the European level for a while, because you don't need names to sell you. And then maybe try and chuck in, after another fight or 2 fights, somebody who's boxed for a world title but not who they once were.
So I got a couple of names.
Not Plant.
So one name that I quite like, maybe in a fight or 2, is Sergei Derevianchenko. Naturally smaller, boxed fair few top level guys at middle and super middle, and
if you keep your discipline
in a couple of fights,
not next. Yeah,
and if you keep your discipline with him, though, you could unbox him, I think.
Yeah. So that I quite like. Some of the other names in and around, I like Stephen So Cold Nelson, who just gave Diego Pacheco decent fight over 12 rounds. He's part of the Terence Crawford camp, 37 years young, very very durable guy, experienced guy. Bruno Saras, obviously coming off the back of his loss to Jaime Munguia, who's been a very naughty boy.
He's not fighting.
He's available.
Is he though?
What, Saras?
Yeah. Oh, the one name was the other one.
Munguia is not available for at least 3 or 4 months. But anyway, and then there's some other, sort of in and around that sort of level. But I think it's fair to say that, with respect to where Callum Simpson is at the minute, not quite at the stage of your.
But he won't think that.
He won't think that, and he won't thank me for saying it. But Diego Pacheco, Osley Iglesias, Christian and Billy,
Hamza Shiraz.
Yeah.
Well, he's been talking about Hamza Shiraz, and if Hamza Shiraz got beaten by Edgar Berlanga, then I think that's something that could happen.
He wants it if Hamza Shiraz wins, but obviously, again, as we all know, we talk about it all the time, the ladder in boxing, Hamza Shiraz will go, well, why do I want to fight him for? In Barnsley, I want to fight Canelo, or I want to fight Eubank Jr.
Yeah, and that's how it goes. Like during the week, he was pouring a bit of cold water on the Jeffers fight along the lines of, well, I'd have all the titles, and what would he bring to the table? And then unfortunately, Mark lost, and I felt for him because he took a hard fight, a good proper fight against Hemphill. That was a really good fight as well. We thought it would be a good fight as well. He took a proper fight against Hemphill, who came with a ton of ambition and was really in shape and really believed in himself, which is what he needed, Jeffers, because he'd had a few jobs where he was supposed to cut them down, and he did that. And
didn't deliver, did he?
He just didn't quite. He just didn't really. He wasn't.
Are we
all the credit to Hemphill, but Jeffers just wasn't. It was. He would have been, I'm sure, absolutely clear in his mind. I am bang up for this. I'm right. I'm everywhere I'm supposed to be. But just that slight edge after a year of fights that weren't the fights he wanted, I think probably just, it's inevitable, isn't it? It's just not.
Just too easy to hit, wasn't he? That's what he was. And Hemphill was good, actually. I thought he moved quite well. It was nice and relaxed with his punches.
Are we up for Callum Simpson against Sean Hemphill?
I mean, they could do it because they've had him over here once.
Title, obviously.
No, they've had him over here once.
But again, that's where a fight where it's like, I'm not defending my European title.
Yeah.
You know,
I wonder who is mandatory. But the EBU don't muck around, do they?
No.
Well, they can actually. They have in that division because Saggio had that title forever.
Yeah, that was more Saggio mucking around.
Yeah. But those, like you mentioned, some of those guys like Billy and people like that.
Not quite there yet.
Not yet.
But you know, though, if he gets his opportunity,
he'll take it, won't he?
No, you win a European title, you're always like, arguably, you can't fight for a world title, can you?
Yeah.
The WBC,
you get an immediate ranking in the WBC, yeah. I mean, he's top 11 with everybody anyway.
Yeah, so, if he gets the shot...
They'll improve, won't they,
after the weekend.
After the weekend.
So there is plenty of options out there.
I'm talking about Shiraz being above him and all that. Like, we haven't said that, but that would be the consensus for everybody. But, but he hasn't boxed at super middleweight.
No.
And...
If he loses to Berlanga,
he's not selling tickets in a football stadium. I know it's like it wasn't all the stadium. What to do, like 15,000?
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah,
still,
it's good.
Given the last couple of years,
Shiraz might be able to do that. I don't know. But he's not doing it.
How many fighters have been able to do that over the last 2 or 3 years? Yeah. Over the last 10 years, that are not heavyweights.
I mean, one fight that people have been talking about for a little while is Whittaker, but Simpson would have to go up.
When is it?
The Simpson would have to go up. I think the scales might have been a bit light on Friday, but because he weighed in at 11.11 and he's usually 11.13, but like that would really have to be manufactured. And why would you do that at this stage of a career? Because it would just suit Whittaker too, because he would be going up in weight. Although I'm sure you could really make something of it. And they've had a few little flashpoints, those two, in car parks.
I can't hear. See, I just went Penel Whittaker would play with him because every time I can't hear. When it was first thing the name when someone says Whittaker, Penel comes to your mind straight away. Doesn't it? No one else. Penel, Whittaker, Penel. Yeah, no.
But it's not looking likely that it's going to be Mark Jeffers.
But it's a good win. He wins in loss. But again, like Wardley, he wins in exciting fashion.
Yeah.
It's good for your profile. It's not the way your coach wouldn't be happy, but all that. But I shouldn't have done this and that. But ultimately, it makes him more of an exciting prospect, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure. Neither of them would have liked the fights to have gone that way, but I'm sure maybe part of them.
TV friendly, isn't it?
I was talking to our producer after the fight, and he was just saying that when you get a start to a fight like that, people are going to stay with it then.
Yeah.
No one's turning over then because if they've watched a few minutes beforehand, then they'll know that this is the home guy. He's the favourite. He's supposed to win, but he's on his arse.
Yeah.
And then you're going to think, oh, this is interesting.
And because I work for the other channel, I'm always hoping your fights are shit. So when I thought, watch this, it'd be fucking boring. It's look at it, shit. Look at the stadium shit. It's not as good as our stadium and all that. You haven't even got rain. You haven't got rain. We were a monsoon and we were. And then 8 seconds he gets knocked out. I go, fucks.
Right.
It did well actually, numbers wise. It did well.
Good. Good stuff. Good main event. Really enjoyed the main event. And to be fair, the co-main with Jeffers and
don't talk about their comment.
Really
and you don't talk about ours.
I did speak about yours. Fucking yours.
What was good with Hemphill as well was that his partner was.
I'm in
with
Sky
him,
tomorrow. What am I about?
and his little
You're
daughter.
talking about how great their show was at the weekend.
And we saw them around during the week. His partner would competed in a long jump for USA in London 2012, and they've got an 11-month-old daughter who comes to fights. This was her third fight, and you could find them ringside with the camera at the end, and tears and all that kind of thing. So you could see like this was he'd had that fight against William Scholl. He topped the bill on Showbox where he'd got knocked out with 2 seconds to go in a fight he probably was going to get on the cards, and then this was massive for him. And I felt for Jeffers, but at the same time, you looked at Hemphill and you just thought, good for you.
Yeah,
like you've travelled, you've really shown up. He got good notice. He did everything. He was with Canelo and Munguia in camp and all that kind of thing, and that's a big deal for him.
You can be happy because like my new saying, which is our new saying, is we're not boxers fans, we're boxing fans.
Yeah,
and I wish the public would be more like that. I mean, certainly journalists. Hey, journalists. Be a boxing fan, not a boxers fan. I mean, we all love boxers and we all get on board with them, but if in our job we just be fans of boxing, so you can be happy for someone.
Yeah,
even though you're sad for Jeffers, he's British, but ultimately, look at this kid.
This kid from New Orleans finds himself walking to the ring in Barnsley at a football ground. He never thought that would happen, and he did the business.
We had that against the guy who boxed. Sorry, Lewis Richardson. I know I won't go too long. I want to go, but I'm going to blab on. The guy who boxed Lewis Richardson, he was over the moon. I don't know where he was from. I can't remember where he was from, but he was Argentina, I think, or something. He was just like, look what I am, and he come in with the football kit on, and he had an Argentina football kit on. I mean, I hope he was the one who boxed him. Pretty what the joy was, and he had the club kit on, and he had the national jersey in his hand, and he thought. He probably boxes in gyms, do you know what I mean, in front of 30 people, and he was just living the dream. And he got totally schooled, but he didn't care about that. He's just like, no, this is an experience. We've
had it in Saudi, haven't we? Sometimes where you do the grand arrivals, and so everybody comes, and all the fighters are there from the start of the week, and you have somebody who's going to be in one of the kind of like not off TV but off main TV fights, and that's what they normally do. And all of a sudden they're there for a week, and they're doing grand arrivals.
It's madness, isn't it?
Open workouts, and you just see them, and they're loving it. And why not?
Right, rest of the card. Yes, the great win for Sean Hemphill over Mark Jeffers. Reece Edwards with a hard fought but clear enough win over.
Well, I thought though.
Yeah,
real structured he was. Yeah. He was good. He's a good kid. He isn't, telling you.
And Thomas Asomba is he made a career about being an opponent, but
he controlled him, didn't he?
Yeah. But a good win for Reece Edwards, and a congratulations on a fine career for Thomas Asomba, who announced his retirement after the fight. Brilliant career. Win for Frankie Stringer over Kane Baker over 8 rounds, and another win for Sam Hickey.
I just want to mention Mario Silva as well, because
his great post-fight interview,
his post-fight interview was absolutely
performance was very good as well,
and he's good, and he's got like Collyhurst and Moston. Paulie, his dad was an area title champion, and he's got good backing, but he gets it. He's young. They're going to need to kind of keep a little bit of a leash on him, because he'll want to go at 100 miles an hour. But there's definitely something there, and to memorise quite a long kind of rap, and then be able to remember it and do it in a post-fight interview after you've boxed, and do it pretty flawlessly. I was standing there holding the microphone, just thinking, "Oh, okay, this is yes, well played, young man," because this is what you need. It's the kind of thing. If you've got it in you, if you've got it in your locker to do something like that, let's see it. And we saw it.
It was very good. Old Super Mario Silva, one to keep an eye on. Right, we've got about half an hour left, so we're going to split it between a bit of weekend and a little bit of what's coming up this weekend. I don't know why I felt the need to specify that, but anyway. Andy, you're not Andy, you're Andy. Andy, going to come to you for what was supposed to be Keyshawn Davis's big homecoming first defence in Norfolk, Virginia. But he's been taking diet tips from me, apparently. 4.3 pounds overweight on Friday's scale. Kind of made no real qualms about it. Just, said that his body couldn't make the weight anymore, but he didn't look to be too disappointed. Obviously was subsequently stripped of his WBO lightweight title. The fight was cancelled. A pretty disastrous week in the Keyshawn. I mean, for a man called The Businessman, it wasn't the best week for business.
No, it wasn't, and I was aware that it was all going on. I couldn't dig too deep because I had other things to do, but at the same time, it's baffling because what happened there? And look, if his body won't do it anymore, then okay. But they must have known a while ago, when I say a while, a few weeks ago, that this wasn't going to happen. And people in the Keyshawn Davis business, like Top Rank, who took him to his hometown and made a massive big deal of it, they needed to know if that was going to happen, because it's fair enough. There will come a point where you can't do that weight anymore, and you probably don't really know until it's that particular camp where it just isn't coming off, or you know that getting it off is going to take too much away from you. But they needed to know, to just turn up on the day and blow the weight by that amount. And you can't have a fight when somebody misses the weight by that much. You never would here, because
not
the
at that
board,
weight, because you're the next fucking weight, didn't you?
Yeah, the board just would never allow it. Commissions can be more lax in America, but you can't have a fight then. And so all of that work that you've done with somebody, it's very, very damaging, because people in his hometown might now think he's a bit of a clown, actually, because they all bought tickets for him and then he ends up not having a fight. They may feel like he's got too big for his boots and he's mugged them all off, and they'd be totally justified in feeling like that. So it was a complete disaster, PR-wise. I just don't know if that was what was going to happen. Why didn't he tell someone?
I just don't get it. Like, he made the weight 4 months ago. He trains in the Top Rank gym in Vegas. He's surrounded by Top Rank people all the time. It was
they will feel tremendously let down by him.
Massively. I mean, you think about it, like I was saying to you before we started, the mayor of Norfolk announced that it would be Keyshawn Davis week in Norfolk, Virginia that week. They'd flown in celebrities from here and there, and because he'd been doing a fantastic job. You think from like Lemos onwards, really. And bear in mind, this is a guy who had a big profile anyway, coming out of the amateurs and for what he did in the Olympics, etc. And they've, in the initial phase, kind of brought him along quite slowly, but the last 2 or 3 fights, it really it hit the straps for him, and they'd sold out in Norfolk, Virginia. You start to really get it. And when you're a promoter looking, probably sorted, but a broadcast deal, he's one of your guys, isn't he? We've got this guy, he's Olympic silver medalist, he's a world champion, he sells out in his hometown, I suppose
it's maybe possible that you know during camp that, God, this isn't going great, the weight making process, but you just kind of hope that somehow during the week it'll be all right on the night, if you like. Maybe I was being
you have a system, don't you?
Yeah, but maybe that was it, because you don't want to let all of these people down, and then you get to the week and that's just, and then it just doesn't happen. But there hasn't been much contrition there from him, has there? I don't think
he
really.
Didn't seem bothered
if
at all.
If he'd come out and said, "Look, I was kidding myself, but I just really wanted to do this, and as it got nearer, I just kept trying to convince myself that it would be okay. I'm really, really sorry. I feel like I've let you all down." But there was none of that, was there?
No. If you're 4.5 pounds over the weight as a lightweight, you don't give a fuck about making the weight. I mean, unless that
can't. Well, I agree. That can't be the closest he could get to 135 if he tried to make.
I would say one thing about making weight, like you've made it in the last fights, but you don't try. I don't think that. Well, I'll try this out now, see if it works again. You don't try making the weight in between fights. You just make sure that system still works for you, because you're getting bigger and older and whatever and thicker, but. Unless you're doing that water loading, which was never around when I was boxing, so I don't quite know how that works, but you shift all the way late. Unless you're doing that, you're going to know where you are from previous fights. You should, as all fighters, make a diary of your weight, and every day of your life make a diary so you can replicate when you did box well, what happened before the fight, how you make the weight before, and it'll give you somewhere, you get a closer system you can to being perfect for every fight. No one does that. I never did it, but I think it's something that you should do. And I think they implement that in GB, actually, in the amateurs, how to get a diary of your weight and your training and all that shit. But so he might have that, and also they employ enough people around them to get it right, for God's sake. Not as if they're all walking around like we were on our own, eating Mars bars and wearing black bags and going for runs. I mean, you make an effort to make the weight. I mean, all right, if he's a pound over, then, again, the fight, you haven't made the weight, it's unprofessional. But if you've outgrown your weight and you tried your best to make it, because you're just doing what you did the last time and it just haven't worked because you're a bit older and put on a bit more natural weight, then sort of fair enough. It's not right, and you should be penalised financially for it. But the fight still goes ahead, by the way, if it's a pound or half a pound. The fact you haven't tried to make the weight, you just gone, fuck it.
It means there can't be a fight.
And you knew beforehand, and you think there will be a fight, because what's that guy going to do? Not fight me. I'm the A side, he needs the money. And that sort of stuff.
Yeah, credit to Samson Lukovic, the promoter. I think they're reported by Keith Idek.
That he's getting paid.
That he's getting paid by Top Rank, De Los Santos, but also they'd done a deal whereby I think the rehydration was 149.5 for Davis the next day. They'd all had it agreed, and then
he was already that the day before.
And then Lukovic apparently said no, safety concerns, we don't want to do it. The report was that he didn't want the same thing to happen to De Los Santos as happened to Devin Haney.
And De Los Santos is trying to win a fight, by the way. He wants to be a world champion.
I mean, I was really, on the shelf for 18 months
I was really,
like,
really pleased when I saw that there was no fight.
Yeah.
I thought, good, that's exactly what should happen. And that's
David's
a brave thing to do.
Anyway, that's the truth.
You stand your ground and say, no, I'm not doing that. I remember Lee Haskins was supposed to fight Randy Caballero on a big card in Vegas. It wasn't Mayweather Pacquiao, but it was big. It was a big card, and he did 118 like he was supposed to. Caballero came in at 123, and it was kind of like, well, what the fuck's he gonna do? Well, Chris Anagar just turned around and said, well, fuck off then. We're not doing it. And he did get his title in the end. They had to wait, but he got it, and they said, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
Yeah. See, I would take the fight. If I was the Santos, I would take the fight. I know I would have. And most boxers would. And that's why you've got good people around you to say no.
Have strong people around you.
They make a decision that you're suffering for originally, but down the line it benefits you, but you're going to go, fuck, I'll fight him anyway. I mean, like, Freitas never made the weight. On my fight, fucking never. I mean, he beats me anyway, so it's irrelevant. But I mean, there could be an argument there, because it should have got more money. Should have said, fucking no, we're not going to fight, and walked away. I mean, they probably would have got a replacement like that. But, I mean...
Yeah, it's still true though, isn't it?
Yeah, but you're thinking like, well, oh my God, because also you like, without the people who you're saying no to, they don't need you. You need them at that point in your career, and you're fucked. So the Santos, by saying no, could potentially, just scribble his name out the boxing. No one don't work with him. Fuck. Yeah. You won't work with us again.
He wouldn't fight a guy who was 4 pound overweight.
Pussy. No, they're doing the right thing, and I'm glad. But Keyshawn Davis is a brilliant fighter. It seems like a really level-headed sort of bloke. I don't know him. I don't really follow people's life outside their boxing career. But what a self-destructive weekend he had.
Well, he wasn't quite finished there because he didn't fight in the ring, but he did some fighting outside of the ring. His brother, Kelvin Davis, was defeated by Nahir Albright, who is a former Keyshawn Davis opponent. People may remember that the win that Keyshawn Davis had over Nahir Albright was changed to a no contest due to Keyshawn Davis testing positive for marijuana after. So there is some history within that. But after Nahir Albright soundly defeated Kelvin Davis, there was a backstage fracas between Keyshawn Davis, make sure I get my Davises right, and Nahir Albright, which, I mean, it was brought up at great length, as one would expect on the ESPN broadcast, because of course there was no fucking Sky show, so I had to watch it by other means on Saturday, which was great. But anyway, let's talk about that after. But really, I mean, if missing the weight is a disgrace to the sport, I don't know what jumping an opponent of your brother after the fight is. I mean, I'm like you. I spent some time around Keyshawn Davis before he boxed Dennis Berinchuk. I think I said on the previous show, I feel like, real superstar quality about him, like real, like engaging guy, can really fight. And after the weekend, I don't really want to see him box ever again.
Yeah, it's absolutely baffling. I don't like.
How do you fuck it up that
badly? I don't know. And yeah, if you're Top Rank, you must be just thinking, what on earth has just happened there? Because obviously, they were building Jared Anderson, and that's gone sideways for the moment, at least anyway. And we all know that their ESPN deal is coming to an end, and they'll currently be looking for a new broadcaster. And before last weekend, I'm sure they're talking to lots of people, but before last weekend, one of their prize assets that they could say, well, but look at this guy, he sells out his hometown, he's great, all the rest of it. We look at what we did with Terence Crawford and what we've done with other people. It was Keyshawn Davis. He was one of their, people they could parade around in front of in front of a TV company. Not anymore. I mean, he couldn't have done it worse, I don't think, last week if he tried.
It would have been less bad if you'd have made the weight and lost.
It would. Yeah, just been rubbish and lost.
Had a bad night, yeah.
Yeah, and he could have got the rematch, and he wins the rematch, and he's bigger than ever. But
then again, like, he's not the first boxer to be like an asshole, is he? So, you know, and I mean...
No, but just under the circumstances, you've got to imagine that Bob Arum, who's seen his fair share of stuff in this sport, must have been thinking. Well, I'm sure he wasn't thinking it. I'm sure he was very much saying it after. I mean, you see Bomac on the stage, who's like, when they announced Keyshawn's weight, you can hear him. He goes, "Damn, what the fuck." Like, it's just unbelievable. I don't like a week ago.
I really wasn't expecting
the start of fight week last week. Imagine how much like, come on guys, like Keyshawn, like, you're 10,000 him is selling out. Come on, like, big rally around. Imagine Monday morning now in the Top Rank office. Like, what happened this weekend? They'll be very happy about Abdullah Mason.
Yeah,
Let's talk about something a little bit brighter because he
good.
stepped into the headline slot. And really dominated, and as we expected him to pick apart Jeremiah Nakathila. But he is right in line now, number 2 with the WBO, as is often the case with, where one guy moves up, there's another guy right underneath them, particularly with the WBO.
Well, he'll get that title shot now, won't he?
It looks as though it could come against none other than Sam Noakes.
See, now my first thought is, Sam was just like phoning sick for that one, but he can fucking punch, can he?
Yeah, and Mason can be hit and can be hurt.
But he can be hurt, but he reacts in the way you want a kid to react when he gets hurt. No panic in him. There's no panic at all with him. And he can box. He's good. He's fucking good. He's a hard kid to beat, he is. I mean, Keyshawn Davis moving up and exploding and all that has done him a favour because, like, he would have struggled with Keyshawn, I think.
Yeah, the experience.
And the movement as well, I think, with the way he throws, the range he has. But Abdullah Mason's a really good kid. And he's not a kid you can hold back either, I don't think. Well, you can't now, it's too late, isn't it? I mean, no, he's young, and you think, he's young, just give him a bit of time, but I don't think he's a kid that needs it. He's had enough fights, hasn't he? And he's been in those fights already where you've had to show you've had a bit of jeopardy, you've had to show what he's like when he gets hurt, or when things not working out for him, and he adapts very quickly, doesn't panic. I like him. Which means you get knocked out by Sam Noakes, so everyone's a winner.
And very good this weekend, Jeremiah Nakathila, sort of his only real standout win was that win over Miguel Pachel a few years back. But he's been in there with some decent operators, of course, in Shakur Stevenson, Ernesto Mercado. Who else did he box? Raymond Murataya, the new IBF champion. Which we'll talk about shortly if we've got any time. But yeah, it looks as though Abdullah Mason versus Sam Noakes could be the fight, Andy, for the vacant WBO lightweight title. Thoughts on that?
I mean, I'd like to see it. I would definitely like to see it. It's amazing how quickly things can change, isn't it? And Keyshawn Davis was supposed to be the man of last week, and it didn't turn out that way. And Abdullah Mason steps up, and now the world has opened up for him. It's a mad sport, isn't it? Really, when you think about it, the way that it can work. Abdullah Mason against Noakes, sign me up, absolutely.
He could get it over here as well, couldn't he? Maybe.
It's possible, definitely possible.
Yeah, if because it could go to purse bids. Frank, big purse bid.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's a right result, that isn't it? Good fight, really. But you make Mason a big favourite. You'd have to, I think, for me.
The speed and the length, but if you're Sam Noakes, you do take heart from the fact that he can be hurt, and Sam Noakes can punch.
And when he's throwing as well, he can be hurt. So if you can be brave, if you can be brave when he's throwing, which I think Noakes can, I think But then Noakes got to be defensively a lot better as well. So it's going to be hard. But it's a world title fight. It's meant to be hard. I mean, no shame in losing to a world title fight. And he might witness when you got power, apparently, but you do have a bit of confidence that on your day, someone once said you got to be perfect for 12 rounds.
It is true though, yeah.
Saturday showed it, didn't it? In for and against, ultimately, like with Callum Simpson, you got power, but you can get caught coming forward and get hurt, but ultimately the power gets you home. And Wardley, you can be totally outboxed for all the fight and then just find the punch to finish it. So like Sam Noakes will feel that, won't he, on my day? But the thing is, Mason can punch as well and box a bit better and more fluent and faster hands, I would say, faster feet, and he sort of ticks you the boxing every quarter, you'd think, on paper. But boxing's not a fight that usually works on paper, is it? So.
No. And again, I guess, not too disrespectful to Sam Noakes, but his few advantages in the fight are enough on the right night. Like, he can punch and he's game, he can work the body well, and Abdullah Mason can be hit and can be hurt. If Abdullah Mason hadn't been decked and he'd shown complete flawlessness up to this point, then maybe we'd be singing a different it's not puncher's chance territory, but it's a hard fight that you would expect pull a Wardley out of the hat,
Well, I think, but what you got to try and commit early with those fighters, haven't you? Yeah, that's the thing with it. I think the longer, because they're technically better than the heavyweights, the longer you leave that fight going where Mason's dominant, the harder it is for you to pull it back. So you want to try and get it drag him into your fight as early as you can. But for a boxing fan, for British boxing fans, to get Abdullah Mason to watch him over here would be brilliant.
It was really would be great.
Tank came over to Copper.
So that was Liam Walsh in the Copper box.
Yeah, the Copper box.
Yeah, that's the one that immediately springs to mind, isn't it? Crawford came over to fight Ricky Burns, didn't he? And it's stuff like that. Big build up, big reputation, and you want to see, is he really all that?
You get to say in 10 years, I saw Abdullah Mason when he came over and got knocked out by Sam.
Imagine those guys who went to Glasgow to watch Josh Taylor beat Baranchek, but got to see Inoue against Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then you go, look, I saw him live.
Yeah.
Some Scottish guy in Glasgow's in the pub going, I saw him live.
I go, shut up.
Mad, isn't it?
Talking out your arse.
I think that was part. BT were angry at me for.
I thought you were in Stevenage that night, no?
Yeah, but I said if you live in Glasgow, go along to watch Josh Taylor win a world title. I put this on social media, and to watch Inoue, because you might never see him again. He's brilliant. This before I ever knew we knew he was, before anyone else knew who he was. And then I got a message of someone, listen, you're promoting other people's show. He was on Sky, wasn't he? I said, I didn't even know, I knew it was on Sky. I didn't say, don't turn into BT to watch Billy Joe Saunders against Shih Tzu, whatever his name was. I said, just go watch him.
I mean,
I understand why people are happy. You're working for us and you're promoting some of the show.
It's a mad thing to pick somebody up on, because if you are a Glasgow boxing fan and you may be thinking, I might go and watch Josh Taylor. Oh, actually, no, I won't, because there's a fight in Stevenage I need to watch. I mean, come on.
Heard this shootout Sufi is tasty. But anyway, right, we have about 10 minutes, which is nowhere near long enough, Barry, to give enough credit to the new unified bantamweight world champion, Junto Nakatani, stopping Ryosuke Noshida inside 6 rounds. In a career best performance, he's seemingly getting better and better every time, Junto. Really, apart from a good start to the fight where Noshida showed plenty of game and gumption and tried to stick it on him, really, it was kind of one-way traffic after the 3rd round onwards, and really cut him down.
The eye did him a favour, didn't it?
Yeah, it was going to get really quite nasty. I was pleasantly surprised that the corner called it when they did, but it was the right decision. It was one of those types of fights when it was about to get really bad.
I actually thought Noshida was brilliant, because I thought he was going to be too easy to hit. Because of his willingness to work, to have a go. I thought Nakatani's going to knock him out 2 rounds before the fight. That's because he'll have a proper go he would. But I thought that would work against him. But he was doing really well. But Nakatani, the body shots were brilliant. For such a tall guy to get down low and work the body well, and he's very good. And every shot is correct and neat. And they keep their shape all the time, even under pressure. They keep their shape. I mean, it's a Japanese thing, isn't it? Discipline is their main thing, isn't it? I mean, even the ones who fight like lunatics, they're disciplined lunatics. It's everything's they're formative, they always. And he's really good. He is, and I think Inoue, didn't he say welcome to the super bantamweight or something? And
well, yeah. So he's moving up from bantam. Whether he goes to super bantam or not, or featherweight, they were talking about. Rudy Hernandez, his coach,
jump the featherweight.
His coach said that if we can't get Inoue, how about this? We'll fight Rafael Espinosa at featherweight.
Massive featherweight.
But that's the first time he's punched up in his life.
He said we'll meet Inoue at featherweight. You just think all right.
That is some magnificent big chat, isn't it? I love it.
They've seen Espinosa because he's hittable.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Really
if
hittable.
Nakatani can hit you, the power will carry, you would think.
bold talk is great, though, isn't it?
But that shows where they're at, and it's good because what we don't want, and we have seen it. I mean, we've seen it with David Benavidez and Canelo Alvarez. I mean, it's different because, by all intents and purposes, Inoue looks interested in boxing Nakatani, whereas Canelo hasn't really been interested.
No.
But how much time did David Benavidez waste stagnating, or how much time do people waste looking for the big money guy in the division, and it doesn't happen? But so they want the Inoue fight, but they're happy to go and build their own by taking real challenges and making big fights.
I love that because if you can get an automatic world title shot, then that makes sense if he thinks he can go to featherweight. But you got to be aware because even though he's a big puncher and he boxes, his boxing's really good. He boxes really good. He's a good boxer as well, but he always got the height and reach advantage over everybody. And even though Inoue was always tall for his weight, not as, I don't think, and didn't have the same physical advantages that he has, arguably more power, maybe, but he's picked the tallest guy. He's naturally given away all the things that he has. So he'd be punching up for a change. He won't have the distance with the jab. So he's really betting on his time and his judgment of distance, which is great. You still got to have that when you're the taller fighter, but it's a lot easier
to do.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, you haven't got to take that big step in and all that. So it's a real gutsy move, but I'm all for it. Actually, I love it. I love that attitude and I love that because that's they're potentially great fighters because they just think I'll beat fucking anybody. I mean, what an attitude to have. You can. Not like a stupidly, these kids who turn pro, I want to be an undisputed 7-weight world champion. Well, how are you going to put on weight? You know what I mean? How are you not going to be that size all your life? You know what I mean?
He's done something.
Just a stupid confidence with no substance. They're I've proved I'm good. I'm better than what you think.
He's already a 3-weight world champion.
He's already arguably one of the greatest ever, Japanese fighters in his mind. So and that would go a long way to cementing that for him.
It's a shame that we're going to miss out on some of the action at bantamweight for him. Sutsumi and Takai kind of arranged and agreed that they're gonna fight next. I think Sutsumi's the WBO champion in recess, and Takai's obviously the WBO champion. Had a good win over Pong Tongdi recently, didn't he, Barry?
No, he was there.
First round blowout. I spoke to Andy. I spoke to a few people about it. I was like, he's a decent amateur. I watched people. This could be, and then he got blown out.
And you text me, didn't you? Yeah.
I text Barry. I was like, this could be quite lively. This fight could be good.
I mentioned he was a good amateur after you said it, but because I watched him, his profile, I just thought he was too loose and relaxed.
Yeah.
I didn't think he'd get starched in a round.
He just got completely caught cold, didn't he? Got caught with a big shot and just never recovered. But anyway, moving swiftly on from that terrible pick. Andy, yes, Junto Nakatani versus Naoya Inoue next year. If it does happen next year, look, he's talked about featherweight, but there's a good chance that maybe he boxes at super bantam and fights, I don't know, an ex-Inoue opponent, take your pick, Marlon Tapales, whatever, fights him at super bantamweight. How does that fight go?
That's a really good call, that is actually. That's the one.
Beat him. How does that go?
I would fancy Inoue. It's a really good fight, and I think we all would want to see it, and I think it will happen because in Japanese boxing culture, you don't really avoid people, do you?
That honor thing.
It's a funny one because it's usually on the way up. Like we always talk about it. I mean, the Japanese domestic proving ground is as solid as you can be.
Yeah, I mean they have actual rules, don't they?
It's like the amateur Cuban thing.
You cannot do your first 5 fights. I think that you're allowed to kind of build, and then after that you have to get more serious, and they may pay very close attention to it.
You go have a look and you see who people have boxed in the 2nd and 3rd fight or 5th fight for the Japanese title. But at the top level, at the world level, that was only the 4th all Japanese unification bout in history.
Which is mad, isn't it, when you think about it?
And 2 of them have involved Kenshiro Taraji. And the one was this year against Seigo Yuriakui, which was a fucking brilliant fight. And then the other one was a couple of years ago. He boxed. The other one was Tanaka against Ioka.
You got a good memory, you have.
Yeah.
Can't remember what happened Saturday.
Anyway,
I couldn't give you the whole bill.
Back to the fight itself. Brilliant performance from Nakatani. As you mentioned there, Barry, I think with the eye going from Noshida was probably a blessing in disguise.
It was a good stoppage, like you said. It's I
don't know whether or not
sensible.
Because sometimes, and it's not obviously a dig at Japanese boxing, but we've had the Genjiro Shigeoka fight recently where he was, he's still, as far as I'm aware, in an induced coma. We had the Anaguchi fight as well, which was on Boxing Day about 18 months ago now, on when Inoue boxed. Inoue on Boxing Day a couple of years ago. He very tragically passed away. So I don't know whether or not, because a lot of our eyes were kind of, or eyebrows raised rather, about the sort of the lack of oxygen and care Shigeoka got after the fight against Tadaran recently. And I know that's a big conversation at the minute in Japan in the Japanese Boxing Commission. So whether or not that was on anybody's mind, not that specifically, or whether or not people may be a little bit more kind of, because it was a perfectly timed stoppage, but often we don't see perfectly timed stoppages. Do we? We see them go on, and it could have been pretty bad for Noshida. But another brilliant performance from Junto Nakatani. We're going to gloss over Jai Opetaia's sparring match from the weekend, and we are going to talk about. Please don't hit me if you see me next time, Jai.
Everyone's fucking scared of me.
I'm not scared of him, man. I'm miles bigger than him, man. Do you know how much I would eat Zucco for breakfast? Not Zucco, because he's a different Italian. The other Italian that he fought, Squeo. But anyway, let's talk about this weekend. 5 minutes we've got to discuss Richardson Hitchins against George Kambosos. Barry, it seems as though this could be the fight that maybe it won't be, but it seems as though this is a really hard ass for George Kambosos. He's had a few hard asses.
I still think Lee Selby beat him.
Yeah,
I do. I think he beat him. And,
in recent years, since that Teofimo Lopez win, he's all credit to him. He's capitalised on that with some big names.
Great career, hasn't he? Great career.
But Richardson Hitchins at £140, to me at least, seems like a bridge too far.
Him. I know Hitchins is not a massive puncher,
but he's sharp and
his
he's long.
Punch is long, and he's big. And I think the way Kambosos fights, I think moving up in weight's not really doesn't really bode well. I mean, that high energy tempo thing, you got to walk on, you got to try and get through that guard. And against someone like Hitchins who can punch and step back and punch again, I think it's a hard night for him. I think it's good matchmaking, actually. A very good matchmaking and good promoting, because what you're doing, you're selling a one star, maybe a future star in your mind, on the back of a guy who was a big name a few years ago. Which he was. And he's still a big name in the sport now, but I mean, he was a hot ticket, wasn't he, when he beat Teofimo Lopez. And he won a world title around the time. I mean, crazy when you think about it. He won a world title around the time when the lightweight division was arguably the best.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was all. You know what I mean? Let's not forget that. He wouldn't be in the top 5 of those lightweights around that time in your order who were the best. Yeah. But he was one of the 4 champions. And beat one of the ones you would put in the top 5. So he's had a great career, and you can never write him off because of his tenacity. But I think all that he does well works against Hitchins because of the size and the way he fights. So I think Hitchins stops him late.
And it seems as though Matchroom kind of signed George Kambosos to maybe make that Liam Parrow fight, which would have been a big fight in Australia. Obviously, Richardson Hitchins had other ideas, went and beat Liam Parrow in Puerto Rico as well. Still strange.
Yeah.
Great
That's
win.
because
Matthias.
He was meant to win, wasn't he? Yeah. Against Parrow.
Have we reserved that arena? Can we get a refund? No, let's do it there.
That was some great boxing madness. That.
Yeah, but yeah, it didn't quite transpire that way, and it's now Richardson Hitchins against George Kambosos. Do you echo what Barry says, or could we see one last great upset from the Emperor?
No, I don't see it myself. I've got a lot of time for Kambosos. I just think his career is one that you could kind of hold up to fighters in years to come as a great example of how you maximise literally everything, because he is quite limited at that top end, but he's got unshakable self-confidence. I remember speaking to him a bit that week he was around when he boxed Lee Selby, and you could tell the confidence was real, and you could tell that he was going to wring every last drop out of himself. And he's absolutely done it, because nobody thought he could beat Teofimo Lopez, let's be honest, but he did it, essentially became an undisputed champion. I know not in name, but in reality, that's what he was, and I'd be claiming that if I was him. I'm sure he is. And since then, he has maxed that out completely. He thought he was going to beat Devin Haney. I'm not saying for a second that he thought, right, what's the biggest fight I can take for the most money? But he got Haney to go to Australia twice under the terms of the deal. He didn't win either of those fights, but he would have got paid. He had a comeback, relatively easy win. and then he got Lomachenko, another big fight, didn't manage to win it. But now he's got another big fight. I don't think he'll win this one. But you know what? Who cares? Because he's done what he's done. He had his chance, he had his big night, and he took it. And he's made it count in a way that most people don't. Because every now and again I've thought to myself, blimey, George Kambosos is still managing to position himself as a top name in the division, and he hasn't won a fight for ages. In terms of a fight at really
there's an argument
level.
really that he's won one fight in the last nearly 4 years, because I thought he lost clearly to Maxi Hughes. I thought Maxi Hughes boxed his head off.
I forgot about that.
That was the fight in between the Haney-Lomachenko fight.
I forgot about. In my memory, I thought he had.
He had the Jake Wiley fight.
Was that in Texas?
The Jake Wiley fight was the one I was thinking of. I forgot about Maxi.
It was somewhere strange. I don't know where Shawnee is. Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, there you go.
Love George Kambosos.
Yeah, I forgot about Maxi. And he did. He had a bit of a touch that night.
Yeah. And then Jake Wiley, the late replacement that he boxed recently up at welterweight. I thought, that was 140. I thought that was a pretty good fight. I thought it was and that I think is kind of telling of where Kambosos is, because in Wiley he boxed the guy who was just a natural at the weight, took it on short notice. He couldn't hurt him, and he couldn't close the distance. And with respect, he's not Richardson Hitchins. So yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm anticipating a dominant win for Richardson Hitchins this weekend, and I think this could be the one where Kambosos, we maybe see him, like when Lomachenko stopped him, he stopped him to the body and he kind of pulled himself up, thinking like, gonna get stopped here, but come on then, like let's do it. Yeah. I'm not sure this time he does that. No. I think this time maybe he gets hit and he stays hit and he thinks, do you know what?
And it won't be the body either.
Yeah. I think he's just gonna. It's almost the worst fight you could have for him at this stage. Yeah, because you got a guy who's not interested in fighting you at all on the inside, and he does what he does very well from the outside. And Richardson Hitchins be full of confidence.
And it's great for him in New York as well. So it's all going to add to the thing for him, isn't it?
Yeah. So okay, that is all we have time for this week. I think we managed to get through everything.
We did, I think.
Yeah, we got through pretty much everything. So yes, thank you to our esteemed panel of guests as usual, Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Andy Clarke, for stopping by, and to you for suffering along with us for the last hour and a half. Thanks very much for stopping by, and we will catch up with you next week.